Hi, welcome back to Lady Loves Said Reads. My name is Jessica, and this is my video where I share with you my favorite books from 2023. I apologize in advance if you're hearing snowblowers and stuff outside. We got 24 inches of snow in 5 days, so we're still kind of digging out, and you're just gonna hear the snowblowers. For my favorite books of 2023, I just literally looked at my Goodreads of all the books that I read and wrote down my favorite ones. Didn't really pay close attention to what I rated the books. When I looked at the title, if I was like, oh yeah, I loved that, I wrote it down. I didn't have any particular set number I was trying to reach, and I didn't list them in any particular order. I'm not going to rank them or try to say which one was my absolute favorite of the year. That just feels like too much effort, and I just don't want to. I ended up writing down 20 books, so a nice even number. And I think I'm going to start by going through the books that I don't own, and then this giant pile of books that I do own. So without further ado, and again, in no particular order and no ranking, let's get started. You Will Find Your People by Lane Moore. This is nonfiction self-help, and a little bit of memoir in there too. But this book is basically about making friends as an adult, and I really liked it. What I loved about it was that it gives you like actual practical advice you can put into action. It's not like pie in the sky ideas of, oh, the right people will find you. It's, here's how you actually go about doing this. Here's how you do friendship. And being someone on the spectrum, I have needed this book my entire life, and it really helped. It helps you think through like how to determine how close you are to someone, how to determine what you value in a friendship and what you need in a friendship, how to communicate with people when you're trying to build a friendship, understanding like where or how you kind of create your levels, like inner circle versus acquaintances versus work connections and that kind of thing. I just felt like it was a really useful and practical guide, and I wish I had had this in my life sooner. Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey. This is his memoir. I do recommend listening to this on audiobook because he reads it and he's got that charming southern drawl that is unique to him. Like nobody sounds like Matthew McConaughey, you know, kind of like no one sounds like Morgan Freeman. I'm not alone in loving this. I actually went into this book ready to hate it, and I really wanted to be an outlier and be one of those girls that's like, I don't like it. But I did. He charmed me, and he actually really inspired me to start journaling and doing more writing again, because this memoir is kind of based off of like decades of his journals that he kept, and I thought it was brilliant. Pageboy by Elliot Page. This is Elliot's memoir as well, and it just tells the story of Elliot's transition and experiences in Hollywood. And you know, I read a lot of celebrity memoirs, and what stood out to me about this one in particular was how very vulnerable Elliot was. There was something just particularly raw about it. Like, he doesn't really try to sugarcoat any of his behavior, whether it was healthy or unhealthy. And it feels so honest and almost like, oh, this is stuff I don't deserve hearing about. Like, I don't deserve knowing this part of your inner world. It's such a gift of vulnerability is the best way that I describe this book. It's a gift of vulnerability. Kill Switch by Penelope Douglas. This is book 3 in the Devil's Night series. If you've been watching my channel for any time, you know that The Devil's Night is my favorite dark romance of all time, and I plan on collecting all of the books as she re-releases them with the new covers. And this one is Damon's story. It's very, very dark, but it is the best romance I've ever read. She does something really incredible with her character development. Damon is a sick, twisted bastard, but you learn why, and you end up rooting for him. You end up rooting for him because you just understand where he's coming from. And I love that her characters are so complex and so layered, and they're all just these really broken people. And what I love about the series as a whole is how it just emphasizes that, like, no matter how broken you are, no matter your issues, you still deserve love, and it's out there for you. And I just love that so much. It's part of why I love dark romance in general. And this was probably the best dark romance I've ever read in my entire life. Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. This is the book that the movie is based on, that has Leonardo DiCaprio in it. And Lily, I forget her last name, I'm so sorry. She won a Golden Globe. I really liked how this book is nonfiction, but it reads like fiction. Like, it's a very engrossing read. I've read some true crime before that definitely felt like nonfiction. But this one just really pulls you in and makes you invested in the story of what happened. Now, I don't know how accurate it is. I didn't, do a lot of work fact-checking it or cross-referencing it. But it was a really interesting and enjoyable read. Oh, it's about... It's about it's about the Osage Indians and how the Osage on their land had oil, and so they became like the richest group of indigenous people in the United States. And so all of these white evil men, of course, wanted to get in on that money. And it's just kind of the story of some nefarious and terrible things that happen as a result of that. And it's also the founding of the FBI. So investigating this situation that happens is how the FBI was founded. Neverseen by Shannon Messenger. This is book 4, I believe, in the... oh, wow. Keeper of the Lost Cities series. I blanked on that one. I loved this. This is my favorite one so far. This one's so well developed. Like, you really get to know a whole lot more about the world, about the political systems, about the society. You get to learn a lot more about the characters. There's some wonderful character development. There's this whole new area of the world that they go to that's like this underground forest, and I loved that setting. It has lots of action. It has plot twists. Just fantastic. Fantastic. Motherthing by Ainsley Hogarth. This is an adult horror. It's about this woman who thinks that she and her husband are being haunted by her husband's mother. And her husband's mother unalived herself. And it's just a very dark, twisted, surrealist story. Think A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. Think anything by Mona Awad. And I love that kind of a story. This really stuck with me. The writing was absolutely gorgeous, very quotable. And it really deals a lot with themes of like motherhood and womanhood and what it means to be a wife and what it means to try to take care of your husband, and are there boundaries or not boundaries in that relationship, and how do you deal with your in-laws, and like it was good. I really liked it. I recommend it. Let us move on to the books that I actually own now. Legendborn and Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. Book 1 and 2 in the Legendborn cycle. This is my favorite fantasy of the year. So this is about Bree, who gets early admittance to North Carolina University, I believe. And she discovers a secret society, and there's magic involved, and it's based on Arthurian legends. I can't really tell you much more than that without spoiling it, but they are fan-freaking-tastic. Oh, the characters, I love the characters. The magic systems, I will admit, are a little bit convoluted, especially in this one. But by the time you get to this one, it makes a whole lot more sense, and you kind of like get into the rhythm of it. And then there are some major themes in here that deal with like institutionalized racism and, feminism, and misogynoir is a big theme in these. It's just really, really good. It's really good. You should just read them. I cannot wait for the next book to come out. It's called Oathbound, I believe, is what the third book is called. I don't know how many books are going to be in this, but It's so good. And after reading this, I was like, I need Tracy Deonn to write an adult romantasy, because there are some scenes between Bree and her love interest that are just like, so good. White Horse by Erica T. Worth. This is an adult horror, and it's about a woman who is haunted by her dead parent and the process that she goes through to figure out why she's being haunted. And a lot of it has to do with discovering her ancestry and her heritage and her family lineage and the power that lies within that. And I read this at a time that I was learning a lot about my own family lineage, so it really hit home for me. It's a very well done horror with a lot of social commentary and a lot of like philosophy in it, which I really loved, and it's scary as crap. So loved this. What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. This is a final girl story, and I love final girl stories because I like hearing about how the characters discuss trauma and working through the trauma and how they handle it all. But it's about these three girls who go to the woods, and they like have this imaginary sort of ritual that they do in the woods, and then there's like murder afoot. And the ending of this, I did not see that final twist coming at all. And I really need to reread it, because I listened to this on audiobook, and honestly I'm missing some of the details of like the plot and everything, but I do remember that I just absolutely loved my time reading this story. And it's kind of got like the toxic small town vibes going on. It was really, really good. So if you like thrillers that deal with like self-destructive women and final girls, small towns, woods, you'd probably like this. It was sort of reminiscent, okay, if you've read Tana French, it kind of had that Tana French vibe. And also it has Jackal by Erin E. Adams, kind of has those vibes as well. Unmasking Autism by Devin Price. This is adult nonfiction. It's kind of part self-help and part just social criticism, but it's about adults who have grown up undiagnosed, basically, or diagnosed with autism, being forced to mask like our whole lives, and the damage that masking can do to us psychologically. It talks a lot about how a lot of organizations like Autism Speaks and then ABA Therapy are designed not necessarily to make the autistic person's life better, but to make us less inconvenient for neurotypical folks, and how that's really problematic, and we need to be advocating for self-advocacy groups and things like that. It does have journal prompts in it, and I'm going to be working my way through a lot of those, if not all of the journal prompts. I found them really helpful. I listened to it on audiobook, and as I was listening to it on audiobook, I would pause it and kind of think through the questions, but I'm going to actually journal because I think that will be helpful. So that's why I bought a physical copy, is so I could work through those journal prompts this year. I gave this 5 stars. If you're someone that's on the spectrum or neurodivergent, or just, you know, you feel like you've masked your whole life, this is a game changer. Pick it up. Check it out from your library. Whatever. Nightshift by Kiara Ladner. This is sad girl lit fic, Women versus the Void. And it's about a woman who develops an obsessive friendship with her coworker, and kind of how messy that gets. I adored this book. These characters stuck with me. I really like the theme of obsession and obsessive friendship. It's set in the 90s as well, so if you late 90s, early 2000s. So if you like that time period, which I do, that was like my coming of age years. So I love anything set in the 90s and early 2000s. That was awesome. It's set in London, if that's something you enjoy. And it's a fairly short little book, but very quotable. It discusses a lot of different things like toxic family dynamics, obsession, of course. There's a lot of sexuality exploration in this, because they do at one point kind of have like a sapphic relationship going on. I gave it 5 stars. I think I gave most, if not all, of these 5 stars. We Borrow the Earth by Patrick Jasper Lee. This is an intimate portrait of the Gypsy shamanic tradition and culture. So this is like a really in-depth overview of Romani culture, particularly focusing on the spiritual traditions. I come from a family of Irish travelers, And while we lean more Christian, there is still a lot of overlap between things that we practice, at least in my particular clan or family, the things that we practice and what Patrick desperately talks about in here. I found reading this to be incredibly liberating, life-changing moment for me. Probably not going to be that for everybody if you're not a traveler, but a traveler or Romany. But for me, you know, it was one of those books that I think about almost every day. The Ballerinas by Rachel Kapelke Dale. This is about a choreographer who was a former ballerina and her group of ballerina friends. I thought going into this that this was just going to be a standard thriller with a lot of ballet drama in it, which I love, but it ended up being so much more than that. This really gets into the Me Too movement and how the Me Too movement plays out in the ballet world. It's so good. If you like ballet, like I love ballet. I love reading books about ballet, even if it's just like trashy ballet drama. So if you like books that feature ballet and feature dance as the major focus, you would probably really like this. And that's what I have to say about that. So themes include the Me Too movement, feminism, how to protect yourself from a predator, female rage and revenge. Oh yes, we love it. Mooncakes by Wendy Xu and Suzanne Walker. This is the only graphic novel that actually made it to my 2023 list, but it's a super, super cozy, witchy graphic novel. There is a queer relationship in it. And that's it. It's super cozy. This is such a comfort read for me. I go back and I reread certain panels of it or just certain chapters of it when I need to feel safe and warm and cozy. I highly recommend this if you like cozy mysteries or cozy fantasy. Like if you like Legends and Lattes, you would really like this. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. This is Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. This is like a seminal work on research and post-traumatic stress disorder. It's quite academic. It's not self-helpy really, it's academic. It does like a deep dive study of Bessel van der Kolk's life work in studying trauma. And he's a trauma expert. Like he worked for Harvard and Boston University. And I think that a lot of the trauma-informed practices that are out there in the world, whether it be through counseling or education or whatever it is, are based on work done by Bessel van der Kolk. Very, very informative and empowering because it talks a lot about what is going on in your body when you're experiencing trauma, like what's going on in your brain, what's going on in your limbic system when you're dealing with trauma. And it goes into a lot of the empirical research on trauma and what they found is a result of the trauma to work for treatment. There's a lot of different approaches to it depending on what kind of trauma you experience, you know, whether you are someone who freezes or whether you're someone who fights or, you know, fight or flight, right? How you end up coping with that trauma response will determine the best route of treatment for you and your traumatic history. As someone who has complex post-traumatic stress disorder myself, I tend to go into absolute freeze mode. I freeze, I become a living robot, essentially. I just freeze. I shut down, I freeze. And so I think this is going to really help me to start practicing getting out of that freeze mode, something that I'm going to go back to over and over again. It's really become like an important tool in my mental well-being. If you like academic psychology texts, you would probably like this. I think where it would turn a lot of people off is that it's very science-based and academic. Like the language is fairly accessible. It doesn't use like the ivory tower language, but it's not self-helpy, right? It's not self-helpy. It's not like a feel-good read. It's academic. It's science, but game-changing science. Nomadland by Jessica Bruder. This is about people who ditch living in a home or an apartment, buy an RV or camper van, or live in their car and travel around the US getting jobs to get by. Loved this so much. It's such good investigative journalism. I really wanted to do a follow-up post-pandemic too. If you like investigative journalism or the topic in general of small space living or nomadic living, you've got to read this book. It also has resources in here if you want to become a nomad. Good resources. I'm running out of time on my SD card. I'm going to try to make the rest of this quick. Catharine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This is dark academia, surrealist lit fic, similar to Bunny by Mona Awad. It's about Catharine House, which is a university where you go to the university and you are not allowed contact with anything outside the university during that time. The main character figures out there's some strange science experiments going on, and it's kind of about the process of unraveling all of that. I think I gave this 4 stars, but it's stuck with me and I think about it a lot, and I'm definitely going to reread it. One of my favorites of the year. Happy Hour by Marlo Granados. This is Women versus the Void lit fic. It's about two 20-something women who live in New York City. They're immigrants, and so they have trouble finding jobs that are, on the level. So they have to kind of take these pay me under the table types of jobs, and they kind of just bumble around New York City getting people to buy them things because they're pretty and charming. But it does get a little bit darker than that, a little bit heavier than that. I like to call it Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, if you've seen that TV show, only with heavier themes. Loved it. Last but not least, Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. This is adult high fantasy. It is what the TV show is based on, and it's so good. It's so good. It's layered, it's complex, it has amazing character development, the world is nicely fleshed out, and it really is more about the political machinations of these different families trying to win the throne, hence Game of Thrones. And I really like deviant and calculating characters, and there are plenty of those in this. This is also a war being fought by women. Even though men are the ones that are technically in the leadership roles, they don't really make decisions unless they've gotten the green light from their women. And I loved that because it's not like a sexist high fantasy. It's actually very much like women rock high fantasy. Good one. I really am running out of time on my SD card, so we're going to wrap it up here. Those are my favorite books of 2023. Have you read any of these? What were your thoughts? Let me know down below. If you haven't read any of them, please read them all. If you just want to leave me an emoji to let me know that you're here, go ahead and leave me any color of heart emoji, because we love all of these books and we love all of our favorites. And until next time, make sure that you continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other.